Instagram, the hardest geezer, has just ran the length of Africa.
One of the areas in this podcast we want to talk about is that building up mental resilience and pushing you guys out of your comfort zones today, because a lot of people don't tend to give themselves the opportunities to push themselves out of their comfort zones. And two things we will touch on is Nick's just done his London to Bristol cycle, which is absolutely insane. So kudos to Nick. And I've got my triathlon in May. So these are two big events.
In terms of a 202-mile cycle, which is very uncomfortable, how is it you get motivated to do something that is that uncomfortable for 21 hours when you're trying to avoid discomfort? And you have to reframe it as in the discomfort is not achieving something great in your life. Like, that's the way I thought about it. Is that by thinking that if I don't do this, I don't get this achievement. And then I miss out and I regret it, like using my body in its prime in something that I won't be able to do when I'm old. Welcome back to the PerformWell Podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're looking for performance and wellness optimization so that you can not only smash your career, but also have a better life, better relationships, and better health. We believe that performance and wellness are yin and yang and work together. So listen in as we dive into topics that are going to help you optimize your life for the better. Back to another episode of the PerformWell Podcast, and today we are going to talk about the first man to run the length of Africa. If anyone's been following on my Instagram, the hardest geezer has just ran the length of Africa, a total of just over 10,000 miles, 352 days, an incredible 385 marathons, which is wild. And if you want to know where he's run from the bottom of South Africa to the top of Tunisia. He's just finished 2 days ago.
He did. I mean, it's an incredible achievement. I think Sky News was following him pretty much throughout his career. And you know what the interesting thing is? This guy, I think he did a little kind of like documentary on it, basically saying that he pretty much went from he was like an athletic person anyway, but he went from it's all right. Sorry. He went.
It just throws errors at me, man. I'm like, what the fuck?
He basically went from kind of doing some runs. He enjoyed his runs. He was a kind of athletic guy, likes a bit of football, and was like, you know what, one day I'm going to go run the length of Africa. And people were just like, you what? You're going to go run the length of Africa? And this guy genuinely just turned and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do it. Yeah. And then obviously that's where his whole story began of every single day he was stomping, as he calls it, stomping along, powering along. And I think it really goes to show the level of mental resilience something like that really takes. He's done an incredible job.
I didn't know who he was for a long time. I saw him on a channel called GeoWizard. Do you know that guy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he does, the GeoWizard is the guy that does the straight line missions where he goes across the country in a straight line. And he did a episode where he ran across Britain, so he had like from coast to coast, dribbling a football. And then obviously Russ Cook was there. And I think Russ Cook was training at the time for this whilst doing the running, which was insane. But the fact that he's ginger and he didn't burn, like he's still pale at the end of that 365 days is insane.
He didn't actually get any kind of tan, did he?
No tan.
None whatsoever.
No tan. A little bit of a tan line.
Yeah.
Like obviously across the edges, but like the body was absolutely pale.
He's insane. He's an insane person, and you saw him get really emotional when he got to the finish line. Now, a lot of people who are watching this, if you haven't followed his journey, go check out The Hardest Geezer. We'll plug him on here. I know he doesn't know who we are, but the guy has done an amazing job, and I think he raised over £600,000 for charity or something.
No more.
Was it more than that?
So throughout most of his journey, I think he had like 300,000 followers on Instagram, and he'd raised about like 65 grand for like a large part of it. And everyone was like, why is he not getting like the recognition it deserves? But then the last week alone, he's gone up to 1 million followers. So he's gained 700,000, and it's gone up to like, I think it's 900,000 for charity.
Yeah.
So it's just all suddenly gone as it does.
But also that's going to be sponsorships, companies spending it, like sending money on to him. And it goes to show consistency pays off. Yeah. I mean, also he came with struggles. Like throughout his journey, he came down really violently ill, didn't he, with food poisoning. He also had what they called acidosis in the kidneys, which is basically where you start to break down proteins. And that's, funnily enough, for any science nerds out there, they'll test it in your urea. If you're starting to break down a lot of proteins, you'll have a spike in acid in your body. And basically what your body's doing is attacking itself, saying, I've got nothing to fuel myself right now. I'm going to eat myself.
It's a form of rhabdomyosis.
That's the one.
Which is, I think that's what it's called. Mm-hmm. It's horrific. Some people have it. I actually thought, like, am I going to get it? But it doesn't really happen that easily. You have to really push yourself.
Well, which is what he's doing. If he's doing the amount of marathons in a day as you've statistically
given
him.
He was peeing blood. I think he had a period of time where he was told that he's broken his back, or like I think like he had some crumbling vertebrae in the spine. But I don't know the full story because it was such a long journey. I just didn't get the time to really appreciate every single day that he was running. But I've caught little glimpses, and I think he even got like kidnapped at one point.
He did. Him and his team got kidnapped by. Yeah. It was a grunt. Oh, where was it? Was it Ethiopia? I can't remember. It was some. It was one of the countries.
No, I think it was the Congo.
Was it?
I think it was when he got to the Congo part of Africa, which is known as one of the most dangerous parts of Africa because it's so rich in its resources. But the way he escaped was he actually ran away. Which was great because that's what he's good at.
Of course he did. He just kept going and going and going. And actually, one of the areas in this podcast we want to talk about is that building up mental resilience and pushing you guys out of your comfort zones today, because a lot of people don't tend to give themselves the opportunities to push themselves out of their comfort zones. And two things we will touch on is Nick's just done his London to Bristol cycle, which is absolutely insane. So kudos to Nick. And I've got my triathlon in May. So these are two big events. Now, we're not sitting here saying, go do a triathlon, go cycle from London to Bristol. No, we're saying we're going to find you and give you some strategies that you can start to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit and start to develop your mental resilience a little bit more so you can improve your overall mental performance and mental well-being. Because let's just talk on one topic here. Russ Cook's mental health. How much do you think that's come on leaps and bounds since doing this?
Mental health? What do you mean?
Mental well-being.
Like his actual mental well-being, or do you mean like his like resilience?
His resilience, that side of things, yeah. So how much because the thing is, when I say mental health, we think anxiety, we think depression, we think down that route of stress. When I mean that, I mean now, from when he started this, how much more belief do you think he has in himself that he can do things like this?
I think he's one of those guys that's already had that belief because he's done a lot of other crazy stuff from what I've seen.
What else has he done?
Well, he's been on YouTube channels with a guy called Sack. I can't remember Sack's surname, but I can't say his surname. I can't remember what it is. Sack is awesome. I think he was part of this show called the Jay and Sack Show. The Jay and Sack Show. Anyway, Sack's really funny. He's like this guy that on YouTube like sneaks into like festivals and places and stuff. And he's done loads of channel stuff with him. And honestly, I've just seen Russ Cook pop up everywhere recently in the past. Like I've seen all of his old stuff, and he's always been on it. He's always been super energized. Got lots of belief. And I think this is just going to further cement that. Like 1 year of his life. Like imagine if he lived to his 80. That's over 1%. Over 1% of his life has been dedicated to this. Like that's huge. And you don't even need a year. You don't even need a year of that to build that mental resilience. All you need is 1 day. You could even do 10 minutes every day. You know, for example, like what we're going to talk about today is you don't need to go away and do these long endurance activities to get the same level of resilience that maybe Russ Cook has developed from this. However, the achievement is obviously different.
Anyway, I was talking about people doing the marathons around there, and there's a lot of people who are getting involved, and I think it's an amazing outlet. You know, I think so many more people are getting involved in kind of running and longer distances of running. But one thing I wanted to ask you a question about, because this man is a machine when it comes to long distance. I am more of a power athlete, as most of you will know, and if you didn't know, I do a little bit of powerlifting on the side. Now, for you, Nick, when it comes to endurance training, what were some of the key things that you would say are what people should focus on when doing long distance endurance training? For your own experiences.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like endurance is more than physical. So you don't need to train super long endurance to do an endurance activity. People think that like just because I went away for like a 21-hour cycle, that I have to train for 21 hours to be able to do it. Like I've only been training a maximum about 5 hours, and that's not every day. That's once a month, and then little 30-minute to an hour segments at a time. Endurance is very much about you're going to be in a very uncomfortable place for a long period of time, and the only way to actually be able to deal with that is to do it. And unfortunately, I don't know a really good way of training for something like that. You know, if you want to try and have capabilities of strength in your life, you want to have a good life outside of training all the time, you need to obviously, you know, realize you're not going to be able to spend lots of hours all the time on training for something like that.
People tend to say about getting the KMs in. You know, that's quite a big thing in the endurance world. And I'm sure some people who maybe start doing 5Ks, 10Ks are like, just need to get the KMs in. And I do believe in that. I think it's like overall volume in a week, you know, for training purposes. If you're training for a 5K, if you can total more KMs in a week. So if you do 10K in a week, broken up into, say, 2.5K runs, that will help you in the long run, because endurance isn't similar. Endurance is a bit different to when you're doing strength training in a gym. You're still looking at kind of linear progression over time. So you're still looking at slowly progressing the weight. So adding like 2.5 kg on, say, to one of your lifts to try and increase it and try and see the benefits of it. But when it comes to endurance training, what I've seen personally from my own experience is it is just about getting shit done.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be brutally honest, and that is the simplest way I can put it, is if you turn around to yourself and say, I'm going to run a 10K, try learning to run a 20K, but just do like 120K to prove you can do it.
Yeah.
Because then the mental resilience, as we were speaking about just then, will build.
Well, no, what I'd say is actually, like, don't even worry about the weekly training because, you need to train weekly, but don't worry about the mileage. Because if you're going to win, if you want to race and you want to beat other endurance athletes at their game, you have to do that. If you're doing it to build mental resilience and just because you enjoy it, doing like a challenge and the sense of achievement, you can get away with training once a week on the activity that you're going to train for. I'm not saying you'll feel great on the day. I'm not saying that you're going to be the best, but you get it done. Getting it done. That's what endurance is about. It's about getting it done. If you're trying to be a racer in terms of beating people in endurance, then obviously you're going to have to look at strategies where you do that. But we're not here to help you with that, guys. We're here to help you perform better.
We are.
In every other day. So, but obviously there's different types of endurance. There's 202 miles. There's 30 miles. There's 1,000 miles. It's just the length of time that you're doing it for. So obviously with... What's your sprint triathlon distance?
So my sprint triathlon, you've got a 400 meter swim, a 35 kilometer bike, and then a 5K run.
Yeah, so that is endurance because even though it's called a sprint triathlon and it sounds like it's a high intensity thing, it kind of isn't.
I ain't sprinting that.
Yeah,
Not sprinting that.
It's predominantly aerobic
versus
anaerobic. For it to be anaerobic, it would have to be under like 2 to 4 minutes.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
There's just no way. There's just no way to do that.
It's
like,
insane.
put it this way. I know you do it quickly. 100% I know you do the triathlon quickly. But for me, I know that I've tried to add up the times a little bit to say, okay, so the swim's probably going to take me sub 10. Yeah. The cycle should take me sub 2 hours. Should, depending on what the elevation's like. And then the run will probably take me about 25 to 26 minutes, depending how knackered I am at the end of it. But I'm, as you were just saying there, I'm just here to get it done. I'm raising money for charity. Donation link, check my account. Yeah. And I'm just raising money for charity. I want to get it done, and I want to say I've done it. Like, if I come dead last, I come dead last. I don't think I will come dead last, because I'm going to be pushing people in bushes and dunking them underwater or something.
What?
Did I not tell you about this?
The police are going to look back on this and be like, why did this person drown? Dan, I saw your podcast.
I got told when people do a triathlon, people just swim over you.
People drown. Like, it's a known fact that people drown every year in the Ironman. Yeah. So, okay, look, if you go on Google and type in Ironman swimmers and you just have a look at some of the images, you'll see a sea of swimmers, like arms in the air, and you can't tell who's who. Like, people get dragged underneath and can't be found, and they literally drown. And then they're found at the end just floating.
See, I made the joke that I was just going to push people in on the start line, not necessarily actually drown them in the swim, really, but I'm now actually concerned.
It's dangerous.
And mine's a sprint, so maybe what I do is I just let everyone jump off, and then I just follow. Yeah. And I'll just sit in there. The squall behind them. Or go wide. Apparently people say there's a technique to going wide. You go wide when you're doing like the you go out to the edges of the pack rather than going straight down the middle.
Yeah, but that makes sense.
Apologies for interrupting the podcast. We know you're getting fully engrossed into this episode, and we really appreciate you stopping on the video on YouTube or on Spotify if you found us through one of the search pages. Make sure to leave a review and a subscription if you haven't already. But we just wanted to interject a point here that me and Nick have 15 years of coaching experience between us, and it's only getting better as we've got better guests on the podcast. The only way we can do that, though, is with the growth of our program that we've just released. We've got a 12-month PerformWell program, which has just dropped, and we'd love you guys to get involved in it. If you want to learn more details, make sure to head to the description, as we've got our website in there, which can give you a full overlay of the program. We're looking to help career-driven professionals, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and anyone dominate their life by improving their lifestyle. Me and Nick like to claim ourselves as experts in this area, and if you want to check out some of our other transformations, I'm sure you do. We've got some amazing people who have performed so well off the back of this program. Have a cracking day, and we really appreciate your time. Let's get back to the podcast.
But you can I think there's streamlining in swimming as well. You know, when you go behind someone on a bike, you get a bit of a slipstream. There's also a kind of slipstream in swimming as well.
The only reason I refute that is because if someone's swimming, they're kicking back and creating force. So surely the force is going to try to push me that way rather than that way.
Have you ever been in a jacuzzi, like a big enough one that you can go in a circle and you can feel the water start to like move with you?
Like a whirlpool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You create that kind of movement and you can feel it pulling you. If someone's in front of you swimming, you're being pulled into their vacuumed space that they've created.
Physics. Who knew we were physicians these days as well?
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like long distance and resilience, for me, the biggest thing is just telling yourself you can do it throughout and proving to yourself that you can do it throughout. Like, I know I can do each of the disciplines. I haven't put them together because if you can see outside, it's not really the weather to go lake swimming right now. But I think when you're building mental resilience, I think when you're building belief that you can do longer distance work, it's a capability of just putting your foot in there and just being like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get it done by this date and just crack on with it.
Well, I posted an email the other day actually about this because I was, as in yesterday, the other day, and I was thinking, motivation, right? How do you actually get motivated? And I was thinking, like, I've read so much about it. I've understood it before in the past. And like, based on this cycle, it kind of came to me in a way that I haven't thought about for a while. And the idea is basically, if you want resilience to help build your motivation so you feel motivated all the time, you need to find something that you're trying to run away from in terms of discomfort, and you're trying to go towards something that's comfortable. So in terms of a 202-mile cycle, which is very uncomfortable, how is it you get motivated to do something that is that uncomfortable for 21 hours when you're trying to avoid discomfort? And you have to reframe it as in the discomfort is not achieving something great in your life. Like, that's the way I thought about it, is that by thinking that if I don't do this, I don't get this achievement. And then I miss out and I regret it, like using my body in its prime in something that I won't be able to do when I'm old. Okay. So that fixes discomfort. And now I also have to think about what is the thing that's comfortable that I'm aiming for. Obviously, when you're cycling, sitting on the bike is not comfortable. I can tell you that for sure. But the idea of getting home and sleeping is. So you have to fight this urge of wanting to sleep. But if the thing that you're chasing in terms of comfort is not the physical act of sleeping and lying down, but it's the reward you get from doing something like that, now suddenly you have a reason to carry on going and a reason to be there in the first place. And you'll realize that over 21 hours, you can sustain absolutely unbelievable amounts of pain. And Russ Cook must have gone through so much of that, and realizing like he's fighting the discomfort of this pain every day, but also the fact that he is never going to have a legacy when he dies if he doesn't do this. Like, this is his legacy that he can create. And that creates that pull and that push that gives you the ability to push through, something like that.
I think when people fight it off doing uncomfortable things, I've spoken a lot about, firstly, about the Chimp Paradox book. If you haven't read it, it's a fantastic book. And in the Chimp Paradox, we talk about your limbic system and your frontal cortex. And depending on which one's working at the same time, we say you've got a human in your brain, which is your logical side. We've got your chimp in your brain, which is your illogical side. Now, when you're doing long distance is basically saying your chimp and your human are constantly at war. You're rather warm.
It's hot in here.
It is rather warm. So your chimp and your human are fighting against each other constantly. And it's about quietening the voice of your chimp. Now, as you're saying, the reward process at the end is what makes the chimp quieten down. And the more your human gives logical evidence and being like, if I do this, I can turn around to my children, my grandchildren, my family members, and say that I've gotten to a point where I have hit this amazing point in. Okay, so yeah, talking about kind of that chimp and human war. You need to quieten down the chimp, and the way you do that is by tiring it out. Fun fact, the way you tire a chimp out is normally by exercising the chimp. So you need to keep pushing yourself along and saying, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And that limbic system will become quieter.
And how do you actually keep telling yourself to push it? Because there are times in something long distance where you're telling yourself over and over again, like when it gets hard, like I'm doing this for this reason, I'm doing this for this reason, but the discomfort comes too much and you literally want to stop, and you think, you start slowing down, you're like, I can start to feel the rest coming, and you're like, I'm just going to take a break here, and then you're like, no, I have to keep going. It gets really hard. So how do you actually remind yourself? And that is where something like meditation really comes in, because a lot of people think meditation is sitting there and humming and hawing and like trying to clear your mind, and that is it, and doing breath work. But meditation is about being in control of the flow of your thoughts. And the way you do that is you take 10 minutes a day. And that is why we want to talk about, obviously, short-term resilience training. So what can you do in a day that will help build your resilience over time that you would get if you did like the length of Africa, did a 202-mile cycle, sprint triathlon, etc. And that would be something that we both probably agree on in some areas, I'd imagine. Well, we'll find out in a second. Cold showers, obviously, is one really good way of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations.
It's an easy way, isn't it?
It's a very easy way, because no one likes cold showers. And the reason why people do cold showers is because you want to get out of it as soon as possible. And if you can stay within it with 3 to 5 minutes, and you can train your brain to be able to deal with discomfort in that 3 to 5 minutes, you'll be surprised at what you can do over the course of the day.
Yeah, I mean, cold showers is one of them. I do planks every single morning, because let's be honest, the longest minute of the day is a plank. And so in my head, I was like, well, if I'm going to do anything, I'll do a plank, and I'll do 3 of them back to back. Because then in the morning, I can say I've done 10 minutes worth of 10 minutes almost. It's almost 10 minutes now of planks. And I've done something that puts me in a mentally resilient position. I know ice baths are part of the culture at the minute. I mean, ice baths are a very common one. Sea swims in the morning. These are sometimes more difficult things. It could even be as simple as, well, let's think of another discomfort thing in the morning. You've got cold showers. You've got planks in the morning. It could just be, I don't know. What else is an uncomfortable thing in the morning? If you guys have any ideas.
Waking up early.
Waking up at like 5 minutes or 10 minutes early, or just getting straight out of bed. Getting straight out of bed can be one of the most...
Some people find stretching uncomfortable in the morning, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I think I can understand it depending on how tight someone is, though, because I used to be a very tight human being.
So I think the overarching topic is seek discomfort.
Seek discomfort.
Seek discomfort. Doesn't have to be a lot of discomfort. It can be just enough that gets you into that place every single day. And that's going to build resilience. That's going to help you run your business better. It's going to help you have better relationships with everyone. It's going to help you be healthier, fitter, because you're going to have the drive and the that desire to carry on through the goals and make it happen.
Well, I think let's think of discomfort from a career-driven person's perspective. You're working every day, so you're working for someone and you're working in those office jobs in the minute. The discomfort you get is repeating the tasks that are dead boring. And that's where you build resilience to do the task better and better and better and more efficient every single time. So it's similar to when we're talking about cold showers, when we're talking about stretching, when we're talking about meditation. You may not want to sit down and be calm for that period of time, because funnily enough, our brains work in a way that we want to work at 100 miles an hour every single day. And actually we need to slow the fuck down and understand that we need to take 5 minutes to reflect on where we are to then progress ourselves forward. And similar in the working world, a lot of the time you put under lots of pressure, which is why when you talk to people who are 50 years old and say they're a solicitor, they could quite easily go into court, write all the paperwork and do that in a day.
True.
But you talk to a paralegal will take weeks to do it because they've built up resilience to doing it and understand obviously the process that they need to go through to get there.
The only little caveat to that, obviously for those listening, is that if you're going to push yourself and do something uncomfortable every day, such as like say you're doing a task that's boring for yourself and you're doing it over and over again, if you're doing it 12 hours a day and you're not recovering from it, you're missing the point. The idea is to create discomfort, but not always be in discomfort. It's yin yang. You need periods of comfort and periods of discomfort. Now, maybe if you go away for a week and do a crazy event, that you're going to be in discomfort for 7 days. That doesn't mean that you're going to be in discomfort for 7 days non-stop. You need periods of time where you recover so that you can actually achieve, go through that discomfort.
Well, as you say, life's not a marathon, life's a marathon of sprints. And you need to put in, I come back off this, we've had conversations so many times of this, and you said I need to watch it because I'm getting burnout every 2 months. And there's a reason for that. It's because I'm not actually factoring in chill time. If you're scheduling in your time, if you're scheduling what you're doing, give yourself goddamn time off. You need to, even from a social side of things, seeing people is going to be burning energy. You're burning the candle at both ends. You just need to taper things back a little bit.
But there's a reason, there's a reason why you did your triathlon. I said to you, like, I only train one swim, one run, and one cycle a week. There's a reason why I do that, because I get ill too quick. Yeah,
and also going in the Keys pool, I'm more than likely going to pick up syphilis. So,
but it's upper respiratory tract infections you can get from doing cardio,
which is exactly what I've got.
Because cardio decreases your immune system ability.
Well, when you do when you do it over prolonged distances, regularly, short term, long term. The benefits are leaps and bounds above that. But this is where we're talking. Sometimes you need to go into a state of obviously getting ill is always horrible, but you go into a state of discomfort to come out the other side. And I think it's important to reflect on that actually now I've gone through this illness a couple of times, the likelihood is I'm not going to suffer too badly from this point onwards, and I'm going to have a bit more resilience and understanding of how I'm going to get to that position where
we can go into like the whole thing of between quality of training versus quantity, but this is not the point of it today. We're going to go into it another time. But we're going to end it there.
Yes, perfect.
We've got to move on.
100%. Thank you very much for watching today. We really appreciate you guys. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And if you are over on Spotify, give us the 5 stars. We really appreciate them, and we really appreciate you guys staying tuned. We've got many more guests and many more podcasts coming out right now, and we do appreciate your time. So thank you so much, guys. We will catch you